we met beautiful people who will inspire you with their wisdom from the heart, sparkling insights and pure awareness. Unique voices from all over the globe talking about heart's leadership.
Not at all.
Thank you for having the time for this interview. Shri Vasudeva, do I pronounce that correctly?
Correct.
Correctly.
Yeah.
You're here for the 17th time in the Netherlands, I understood.
Yeah.
To be here in Luna and to tell people about the wonderful stories around transformation and what that can bring to love and light in this world.
Absolutely.
Today I really would like to hear your vision a little bit more on what leadership can do to the world and what is your vision on this. So I would like to hear a little bit more on that because you've been a leader also. You're a spiritual leader, you lead meditations, workshops, you give lectures, you tell this story, and we would like to get your vision and inspiration for the leaders of the world.
In my thinking of leadership, we have the outlook that the leader is not the ego, but the leader is the higher or noble self that lies behind the ego. Now we think of ego as that personal self or that individuality, that sense of individuality, consciousness of individuality. And if we operate from the consciousness of individuality, then we call that ego. And then we can have a good ego, and we can have a negative ego, aggressive or confrontational, demeaning, condescending. And we could have that kind of attitude, and or we could have the attitude of nobility. But in the idea of nobility, one can also become self-righteous in the sense that I'm the good person.
Yeah.
And you are not the good one, but I'm the good one. I'm practicing all these virtues and values, and this is my company. I'm the director here. And so even though a person may do good things, but they are still caught in the idea that they are the doer. But if we grow in spiritual consciousness, or we grow in consciousness, if we were not to use the word spiritual in terms of its separateness from secular, because I see spiritual and secular as extensions of that same source being. Yeah. But if we were to think of a universal source that exists within us all, and if we were to think that in that essence of being, that you and I are the same.
So then you're talking about oneness.
Oneness. So that's the idea that there is one self that pervades the whole universe. That at the core of my being and at the core of your being is the same self. So that means that if we come into a rapport or a bond, we can actually feel a sense of equality and oneness. That is because essentially at the very core of being, we are one. So the more conscious we are of self, or of higher self, or essential self, the more conscious we are of the unity. Yeah. And if I were to take the Christian concept, or the Christ words, and when he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself, which is perhaps the essence of all spiritual tradition, when he said, love your neighbor as yourself, he is really speaking about the oneness of being. So he's telling that we can live from that sense of oneness and equality. And I think in all of nature, we are meant to be united. Because in terms of nature, our body is constituted from the elements of nature. Yeah. So if we pollute the water or the air, we are polluting our bodies. Yeah. So if we think of the unity of existence, even at a biological level, then we'll have more respect for the air, for the water, for the fire, for all the elements. And so the consciousness of oneness makes leadership different. Yeah. It takes away the selfishness.
For leaders to get more conscious of their connection to everything.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And with that, they become a different leader and show a different leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because then you don't lead with a sense of inequality. Then you don't have class in terms of the leadership, but you have oneself. That I do this, I'm good to you because I can feel that within me and within you. at that same self.
Now I've read that you are here in Holland for a 3-day retreat at the Blue Star Academy, and you are talking about transformation and how that relates to the mental, the physical and emotional aspects. Now, if we as a leader gain this kind of consciousness, and we live in this world here in the West within the structures that we have invented in business, organizations, what we think is right as a success, how would that conscious lead to a different way of doing business, you think?
Yeah, and the idea is that if we do business, we do it for the success of all. So there's a sense of rewarding people, honoring people, and motivating people with a sense that the same potential that exists within me is within all. The same right to exist in the space is within all. So my motive for doing anything, for building any organization or running any organization, is the fact that I can serve, that we all can be wealthy, we all can be happy, we all can be in a higher state of consciousness. So I'm motivated by that. So is it possible then that in businesses or in corporate businesses that we can, the entire workforce can feel like it's a family?
And then,
of course.
Then we have that state, and then
right.
What will happen then on a physical level, or an emotional level? What do you
but again, physical and emotional are driven from the mental. And if the mental is driven from a higher or noble self, then it means that every part of me is driven. So if my mind is driving my emotion and my mind is driving my body, and that noble self, that noble part of me, that God part of me, that sacred part of me is driving my mind, then that is essentially driving all of me. So then my passion is a reflection of my higher consciousness.
And then you create differently.
You create differently. And then the world, you respect the world differently. Your creativity shows up in so many ways. And my thinking is that once somebody moves away from selfishness to selflessness, it doesn't mean that they wouldn't prosper. I think when we all prosper together, then that's real prosperity. If I am rich and you are poor, then we cannot call that real prosperity. When someone suffers as a result of my existence, or if I'm withholding something that can make us all happy and all prosperous, or all well fed or well taken care of, then for me that is what true wealth is, or that's what true value or prosperity or progress is. It's like Bhutan. You know, in Bhutan now, the idea is that not only gross domestic product, but the gross national happiness.
Happiness. It's wonderful.
Right, absolutely.
And if you're talking about having together the prosperity, you're also including nature.
Also including nature.
So it's people, nature, earth, everything.
So leadership has to be based on a sense of oneness or equality. And it has to take into perspective the needs of all.
I understand.
And to withhold is to perish. And to share is to survive as a nation. So take, for example, the corporate companies that has no respect for the environment. They're destroying all of us, ultimately.
How would you give hope to people who work in an organization where the leadership does not yet have the consciousness or the willingness, or are just not yet awakened to the sense of oneness? What would you say to these all these people?
That's a very good question, because that's the reality of our existence. My thinking is that change can begin from the grassroots level. If we come together with a different consciousness, if workers unite with a different consciousness, then that consciousness will begin to change or transform how the top operates. So if we educate people differently, if we inspire people differently, to think differently, in our education system, in our business schools, wherever we are, in terms of ethics and good principles, if we inspire people to think with a sense of equality and a sense of collective consciousness, then in a very natural way, we influence the all. and we influence what happens at the top, because the top is only a reflection of what's happening at the bottom. If the bottom is divided, then top can rule very easily.
Yeah.
If bottom is totally with one consciousness,
Yeah.
it's going to transform what is happening in top.
Yeah. That's wonderful and hope-giving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I see things.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful.
So if we educate people, if we inspire people, if we motivate them at the lower level, which is some of what you like to do, that creates a change that's definitely going to ripple to the top.
Yeah. So create critical mass together as a group will help the world evolve in
And
consciousness.
you see it everywhere
Yeah.
in thriving organizations.
Yeah, and we're talking today about organizations and leadership and business life, which has a very specific focus on mental awareness or mind awareness.
But don't you see now that even good businesses are also speaking about wellness and stress management?
Yeah.
Because they realize that when they focus on wellness and stress management, people are more healthy.
That's true. Yeah.
And not only more healthy, but they're emotionally stable or mentally stable.
Yeah. We're talking, you hear a lot of these days about it, that there's more critical mass around the world.
But not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Not enough.
So the work continues.
Yeah.
Definitely the critical mass principle is an excellent one. That's how things happen. But we don't have yet that critical mass that can ripple through the world. Because we see the leadership that serves us, they're still not the desired leadership.
Yeah.
It is not reflective of the mass of good souls that are at the lower level. So the more integrated that lower level is, and the more the critical mass develops to greater number, the faster that change will happen every time.
Yeah, I understand.
So it's always predicated on what's happening at the lower level and how much unity there is at the lower level.
What is coming from these days now? You're going to start a retreat as of today, I understand.
Yes, started today.
The message of today and tomorrow.
It's self-transformation. It's a self-transformation. But it says in our essence, we have the most beautiful qualities. And in our essence, if we were to think in terms of a spiritual context, in our essence, we're immortal beings. That we exist beyond change. So I speak about a witnessing self, a part of us that can witness change from without being identified with the change, or without resisting the change, or in conflict with the change. That there's a part of us that can observe change, totally at peace with it, and in flow with it. So I speak about touching that part of us, and that's what we call the spiritual part of us, or the sacred part of us. If we are centered there, then we see thoughts that move in our consciousness as creations of ours. And so we see mental patterns as creation, emotional patterns as creation, physical being as a result of all the things that we have been thinking, as a result of the patterns that we have created in our being. So if we can come to a place where we detach from a detached point of view, and we can really observe the patterns we've created over time, and realize that in seeing that, we have the opportunity to recreate.
That's wonderful.
Then change can happen in a marvelous way.
And then we're real creators altogether.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And co-creators, creating together.
Yeah, together.
Yeah. So in this retreat, I'm guiding people. The beauty of what I do is that having gone through a personal transformation in my life in my early years, and I experience a consciousness center in me that is very accommodating to any kind of change. And a consciousness that can stay stable in terms of nobility and values.
Wonderful.
So that is what help, and what I believe in further, which I think is very exciting, is that we can impact each other with it in such a way that if you're with me, and you being a conscious being, and also a being expressing energy, then when we come together, something happens in the energy communication that wakes up, creates an awakening in the one who may need to be awakened more. Until there's some kind of equality. Much like the flow of electric current from one potential to another, equalizing.
Yeah, that's the oneness then.
That's the oneness.
Coming back to oneness.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So we can catch it from others.
Mm-hmm.
So the more of us who have this higher consciousness quality,
Mm-hmm.
the more we can inspire that change in others just by our presence.
Yeah, just by our presence.
Mhm.
Just be.
Just be.
Just.
Be the changes.
Yeah. Wonderful.
We hear.
Is there anything you would like to elaborate a little bit more on for leaders that you feel that needs to
Yeah,
be said today?
I think in the training of leaders, we need to have that concept of unity amongst not just human beings but all of life. That we should have this consciousness of unity and diversity,
Yeah.
and the sacred nature of life.
Yeah.
That all of life is sacred.
Yeah.
That we all find ourselves on the planet.
Yeah.
And we need to really appreciate the sacredness of life itself. And you see it in indigenous cultures and shamanism.
Yeah.
You see how there's great respect for life.
Yeah.
Can we now in the corporate world and with all of the technology come back to the sense of that the essence of technology, the essence of the life principle is sacred.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That creates a big change.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I don't like to use the God word,
Mm-hmm.
because then it brings us more into a religious
Mhm,
context.
yeah.
But I think we don't need the religious connection.
Mm-hmm.
But life itself is sacred.
Yeah.
It needs to be preserved, needs to be respected,
Yeah.
needs to be honored, and needs to be understood.
Yeah. So once a leader truly connects from the heart with
Which makes a leader truly.
Source.
Absolutely.
we would have the leader we would
Yeah.
like to see for the
Yeah.
future.
But so heart is one aspect of it, but the heart is the unity aspect. But the consciousness is important.
Yeah.
The leadership consciousness,
Yeah.
which is the consciousness of unity.
Yeah.
The energy of unity means, okay, if I hold your hand and say, this is a bond we are creating,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I can feel that your heart and my heart connects to that hold of the hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's one.
Mm-hmm.
But that only happens or is driven by if I have the concept that you and I are equal. If in my consciousness and my mind,
Mhm.
I can understand that you and I are essentially equal
Mhm.
at a deeper level,
Mhm.
then that drives the
Mhm.
loving relationship that we would have,
Mhm.
and the relationship of respect and nobility
Mhm.
and care. So it's a consciousness that drives the whole experience.
You say the consciousness is here. Do you think is it like in the mind? Is it like what we call the
Yeah,
third eye, the final gland?
okay. If I were to define
Or is it-
consciousness,
Yeah.
we are conscious beings. We are having a conscious experience of everything that is happening within our being.
Mhm.
I'm conscious of my thoughts, so I'm mentally conscious. I'm conscious of my emotions, so I'm emotionally conscious.
Mhm.
I'm conscious of my body
Mhm.
and what's happening in it, so that's physically conscious.
Mhm.
So that ability to be conscious
Mhm.
of thoughts, of emotions, of body, and of self. I'm
Mhm.
conscious that I am an individual, I'm a self.
Mhm.
That quality of being, to be
Mhm.
conscious, is what consciousness is.
Mhm.
And that for me is what God is. And that for me is what life is.
Yeah.
Consciousness. But not just the consciousness of I'm separate from you,
Mhm.
but a consciousness that makes me feel I'm united to all of life.
Yeah.
That universal consciousness of being. So for me, the more we experience that as a reality, not as a concept in the mind,
Mhm.
the more we can feel it as a reality,
Mhm.
the more our lives will be changed and the way we operate.
Yeah.
It begins
Yeah.
with a consciousness.
Thank
So
you.
that's what I inspire,
Thank
the
you.
change in consciousness.
I would say Anand and Namaste.
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 Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I wish you blessed days over here, and I hope lots of blessings for all the people who will have
Thank
them.
you. I deeply appreciate that.
That people really get in this state of connectiveness, truly.
Yeah. Intentions are very powerful. So when you express an intention,
Yeah,
I have gratitude for that.
yeah. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your being.